Hello, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. This is Skill Builder 7, and today we are learning about a new time signature. Now, I mentioned this in class, but the reason we are learning this right now is because we are preparing to work on a special piece of music that we are going to perform in the spring concert. And this piece is going to be with all of the middle school and all of the high school string players. And the piece happens to include this time signature. And so we are going to spend a little bit of time over the next couple of weeks practicing this because it's a skill that is pretty challenging. And normally we spend a lot of time in high school working on it, but I know you guys can do it. So don't get discouraged. This is just the introduction to it. And you can see I don't even have an instrument with me today because what we are going to do is go through what the time signature is, what it means, because it is different than what you've seen before. And then we are going to practice counting and clapping some rhythms together. And so this worksheet that I have up here, and let me just get rid of this, but this worksheet you have at home, I gave you a copy of this. Go ahead and grab your copy because in a minute we're going to be writing some things on the back side of the worksheet. So go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to get started here. The worksheet says compound meter. Meter is another word for time signature. And so there are several different compound meters, but the one that we are talking about today is 6/8, and that's the one that's in the piece that we will be working on. Let me read for you what it says here. It says compound meters are meters where the beat is divided into three instead of two, as you've learned up to this point. Now, you may not have realized this, but every meter or time signature that you have played in so far has had the quarter note as the beat. So when we count the beat, we're counting the quarter note, whether the time signature is 4/4, 3/4, or 2/4. We always count the quarter note as the beat. And when you divide that quarter note into eighth notes, there are two eighth notes per quarter note, and they are in groups of two. So the quarter notes come in pairs of two. In 6/8 or in compound meter, you will often see the eighth notes in groups of three. So you can see down here, they have an example of what that looks like. So right off the bat, it might just look kind of weird to you. I promise it's actually easier than it looks, but visually you might say, wow, that is so different than anything I've ever seen before because you're used to seeing those eighth notes in groups of two. It continues to say, a compound meter can be tricky because it involves counting numbers differently from what appears in the time signature. So it's just different than what we've done before, and we'll get into that. And the most common compound meter is 6/8, which is what we're looking at today. If you look over in this pinkish red box, it tells you how to interpret what a time signature is. And so the top number tells you how many beats are in each measure. And so the top number is 6. That means there's going to be 6 beats in every measure. But unlike time signatures that you've looked at before, the beat is not the quarter note. So there's not 6 quarter notes. The bottom number tells you what type of note is the beat. And because it's an 8, we know that means that there are eighth notes as the beat. And so our each measure in the time signature of 6/8 will have 6 beats, and the beat is an eighth note. So 6 eighth notes. And you can see in the two example measures they have here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or even if they're grouped together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, they get in on the bottom of this page to counting the measure in two, which is the kind of the next level. It's a little bit harder than what we're doing today. But today, every measure we're going to be counting to 6, and we're going to see how different combinations and different rhythm patterns can be counted differently. Okay, so the basis of this and what you need to be remembering as we go through this, there are 6 beats in every measure, and the eighth note gets 1 beat. So every time you see an eighth note, it gets a number. If you have a type of note that has more than one eighth note in it, it gets more than one number, right? Like a quarter note is made up of 2 eighth notes, so it would be 1, 2. And we'll see that as we go along here. So I'm actually going to scroll down to the back of the page, and this is where you're going to need a pencil because we're going to write in some rhythms, okay? So let's start with line number 1. The first thing we have in this first measure of 6/8 is a whole rest. Now, a whole rest means you rest for the whole measure. In 4/4, that means you go 1, 2, 3, 4. You rest for 4 quarter notes. In 6/8, it just means you rest for the whole measure for 6 eighth notes. And so I'm going to write, normally when you write rests, you put it in parentheses. So you would count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can go ahead and write that. So as you are counting in your head, you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, you don't play because it's a rest, but that's how long you count as you rest. The next measure, we have our 6/8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So go ahead and I'm just going to make it easier on myself, copy and, no, that's not what I wanted to do. You can see I was just preparing a ukulele lesson. Let's try that again. I don't think that's going to work for me. So 1, oops, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each eighth note gets one beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see this exercise is really repetitive. I'm not going to write the rest of it in. You can if you want to, but this is just to show you you rest for 6 beats and then you play the 6/8 notes. So let's go through this one and we will count and clap. So when it's a rest, you can count it in your head, and then when there's a note, you can clap the note and say the number. So ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hopefully that was easy. We are taking it slow, but this is brand new, so eventually we can do it faster. That's probably the easiest 6/8 counting you will see. But let's move on to the next line, to line 2. Now we have some dotted quarter notes. Now, if you're a 6th grader, you definitely have never seen these before. 7th and 8th graders, you may have seen a dotted quarter note before. And normally when we play a dotted quarter note in a different time signature like 4/4, it gets 1.5 beats because a dotted quarter note has a full quarter note, which has 2 eighth notes in it, and then it has half of that, which is another eighth note. So it has a total of 3 eighth notes. So anytime you see one of these, you're thinking, okay, 3 of these eighth notes can fit into this dotted quarter note. And so that's going to kind of change how we do our counting. We're going to count this 1, and then you can almost think about the 2, 3 being in parentheses because it's a long note. It's a 3-beat note. 1, 2, 3. If I was playing it with my bow, 1, 2, 3. And then the next dotted quarter note would be 4. And then you could think of the 5, 6 in your head. There we go. I'll try to line that up just a little bit better. So the first dotted quarter note gets the beat 1, and the second dotted quarter note gets the beat 4. 1, 4, 6. Of course, these whole rests, we've already dealt with those up here, so I'm not going, I wonder if it'll let me copy and paste now. Let me just try it one more time. Nope, still not working, still giving me ukulele. That is okay. I think I can just, add a new one real quick here. Maybe not. Can you tell I don't use Cami much? Here we go. Parentheses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rest. Okay? So let's say and clap line 2. Even though there's 3 eighth notes in every dotted quarter note, it only gets 1 clap. So let's do this together. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Excellent. Okay. Now we get a combination in line 3. We have some dotted quarter notes, and then we have the groups of 3 eighth notes together. So let's write in what this counting would be. So our first dotted quarter note, of course, would be 1 with the 2, 3 in parentheses. It's held for 3 eighth notes, but you only play on the number 1. And then we are going to rest for 4, 5, 6. Oops. Okay. Now this is a new rest we haven't seen, but you can obviously tell because it fills up the rest of the measure that it gets 4, 5, 6. It would be the same duration as a dotted quarter note. It's just a dotted quarter rest. So you play 1, 2, 3, 6. You rest for 3/8 notes. We have another dotted quarter note. 1, 2, 3. And then we have 3/8 notes. Those each get played. We each get one beat. 4, 5, 6. So that measure, if you were to play it and clap, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? This measure actually is the same. There's a lot of repetition in here. You can go through and add them, but just for the sake of time, I'm not going to add them all in. But I am going to go through with you right now and clap line 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right? Hopefully that is making sense. And I'm actually going to skip line 4 because it's the same type of stuff as line 3. It's like just different combinations of those things. There's nothing new in it. You could go through and practice that one on your own. But line 5 has something kind of new in it, so we need to practice that and talk about that. And it's these pairings of quarter notes with an eighth note after that. You can look through line 5 and see that that happens a lot. Quarter and an eighth note. And this is something that happens a lot in that piece of music that we're going to learn. So it's important that we understand this. Let's start with the first measure. This should be really easy for you. It's 1, 2, 3. Oops. And then the next one is 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, the next measure, we have a quarter note with an eighth note. We know the eighth note just gets one number because it's worth one beat, but a quarter note has 2 eighth notes that fit in it. So this first quarter note will be called 1, 2, 1, 2. And then the next eighth note would be the next number, 3. And then we have a dotted quarter note, so 4, 5, 6. So when you say this second measure, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or it sounds like this when you clap it. Saying it is a little harder because we're always counting to 6, but when you clap it, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's important that you're not just saying these because we're counting to 6 the whole time, right? But you need to know where the clap goes because when you're playing it with your bow, that's going to indicate where you would change your bow direction, right? So we have a similar thing here. We have a quarter note, 1, 2, because it's worth 2 eighth notes. This next eighth note would be 3. The quarter note would be 4, 5. And then the last eighth note would be 6. When you say it and clap it, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You might notice, and this is how it should be, the quarter note, it's like long, short, long, short, because the quarter note is twice as long as the eighth note. I'm going to keep going with this one because I know this is a challenging one. We have 1, 2, 3, and then rest for 4, 5, 6. The next couple of measures are identical to each other, so I'll just write it once. And it's actually the same as over here, but I'll write it one more time for when we go through it together. It's 1, 2. Not really lined up well. Hang on. There. 3, 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? You should probably be able to go through and do the rest of that counting on your own. But let's read and say and clap line 5 together. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, ready, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm going to leave line 6 for you to do on your own because, again, there's nothing new in it. It's the same concepts, just scrambled up in different combinations. But hopefully this is starting to make sense. I know this is very different from anything we've ever done. And that's why we're starting by just counting and clapping. And we will practice this in class together. If you're looking for an extra challenge, you could actually do these rhythms on your instrument. You could pick a note and practice bowing these rhythms. All right. But don't get discouraged if you're having a hard time. We will spend lots of time in class and even in the next skill builder working on this. All right. So everyone have a great day, and I will see you guys in class.